They
Well,
set
but
him up,
I
and they
called it.
went.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
I,
said
I don't want to sugarcoat it.
okay, but I before I go there, but I also had a conversation with a brother who's been on my show. Maybe if he hasn't been on for a couple of years, but who's very familiar with this case. Also, who had told me a couple of years ago that where he is in Atlanta, he specifically was present when because he's in the music industry, and he said that his son was there at the studio and had these young ladies with him that he was telling them what to say. The promise he was going to take them to Disney the world, I guess the one in Florida. He told them that if they got the story right, if they were able to, whatever they were going to say to the authorities, he said he was there when the son, whoever, I guess he was, I don't know if his biological son or what, was
His
coaching.
name Jacob York.
Yeah, well, he was well, I'm calling coaching. In this case, he was coaching these girls as to what to say. But then, like you said, the video I saw, the women were saying they lied, they set him up. And my question is, why, if those kinds of things have been publicly, those declarations and statements have been made, isn't that enough to? Well, I know why, but I'm going to ask anyway. Why hasn't that been enough to reopen the case and to release Dr. York?
This is the continuation of COINTELPRO.
What does
Remember,
it take from us? I mean, what's it going to take from us? I mean, do you think because we've been too
we
silent?
have to restore our tribal jurisdictional supremacy on the land. The tribes are responsible for restoring back the balance to the land. And you're going to know this because the statistical crime rate is going to plummet. You're going to have the OGs and all of the hoods explaining to the youth about how we got infiltrated, how they turned us against each other. And the youth going to take it to the streets and they going to talk among themselves and they going to support the elders in the oral tradition of reclaiming the land. It's in the process now. If you watch the algorithm, 5 years ago when I started this, it was probably me and Dane Calloway and Karimu Ahu are the only ones telling the story. Now, when you look at the algorithm, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, everybody know they not like us. They not like us. Everybody know. Everybody know that you even have political officials coming out calling the former slaves Indians because they was never slaves. We was prisoners on our Big Mama's family farm that they named the plantation. That was because they used it as a makeshift prison because we was already there. We was living in, we had, until you get married off and go set up your own household, grown people, they had to go stay with Big Mama because they had to help with the family functions, the family farm. And then, some of them stayed with Big Mama up until they was up in age. Some of them built a house down the street, a couple miles down the road, so they could come every morning. All of the stuff, barbecues, we've been doing that for hundreds of years, thousands of years. That's nothing new. They call it making an offering, a burnt offering to the gods. That's not making no burnt offering. That's a barbecue pit. We're cooking the meat. This way you got the pit masters. You still got the brothers been doing the same thing that their ancestors been doing down there with the in-ground pit, with the steak over the pit, rotisserie cooking, hogs for a big function or a cow. Back then we ain't had cows. We was using bison, elk, and moose. But now, because they didn't killed off so many bison, elk, and moose, they didn't depleted the resource, and then they gave us bovine beef and pork in its replacement. Pigs not from over here. Cows not from over here. It's not compatible with the original tribal blood types for us to be eating that stuff without developing certain key and known ailments of the day. Alzheimer's, high blood pressure, diabetes, and dementia. They really want the saturated fat to give you Alzheimer's and dementia, so you can't never tell the youth what you remember. And then they want to drug them up so that they can have ADD, so that they can't understand what you're telling them because they don't even know what they doing because they so drugged up. All that stuff is warfare. It's biochemical warfare. It's open warfare. It's food warfare. All of everything that we did naturally, they either villainized it or monetized it. We had a whole different species of yard bird that wasn't a chicken. The chicken is the closest thing we got to it, right? But we used to have turkeys more than we had chickens. Big Brontosaurus drumstick on Big Papa plate. Yeah, they took all our culture and they turned it on us. They used it against us as opposed for us to use it for our betterment.
Yeah, I saw something else too that was interesting where they were showing, I think it was Vanessa Williams was doing a search on her family, going back to check her roots. And of course, she obviously has mulatto in her family, but her great grandfather looked just like us when she finally went back and found and was a free man. They showed that he was a free man. He was in the legislature. He was in a lot, he wasn't mulatto in he wasn't, but he actually was serving. And so one of the, I call them the vanilla people that was a historian where she went back down south to check, was saying, well, there was a time when people like your grandfather were serving in the legislature and they were doing XYZ and all that. But at some point, I think he was in the last set. After that, they started doing things to make sure that they weren't in. They were no longer.
Yeah, they started passing laws to block them out and replace them with pale faces.
Right. So they were doing stuff like another brother was sharing with me that he had done some research, found some paperwork out of Alabama and wanted to get a certified copy of it. But he said in this paperwork, he said that in order to vote, and this was like in the 18 somethings, you had to be a landowner, and you had to be able to pay the poll tax. He said there were only 700 and some in this record, pale faces, so to speak, who were actually able to vote, but over 4,000 of us that actually voted back then because they were landowners and they had the funds to pay that. So a lot of these things, like I said, the story that we get is that we were all in slavery, and from the boat to that. But the fact of the matter is that how they begin to get them to, when they formed the U.S. from the British Moors, they became the British, formed the United States, and then conned some of our people into joining in with them and giving up their birthright. They didn't need the 14th Amendment because they already voted. They were already landowners. They were already this, but all these things changed.
Because you got to remember, it was still a war. The North
naturalized. Why did they naturalize when they were already the natural Aboriginal people of the land?
Yeah, this goes back to we the largest heritable landowners in the history of the country, but ain't nobody telling us where we get the land. How we get all that land if we wasn't already here?
Right.
Right. We were massive landholders the whole time because we didn't believe in selling land. They used the sweetheart swindle to marry Big Mama off, poison her, and turn Big Mama house into the big house. Then they go hire pale faces as the property managers, as the farm managers. That's why we ain't like the house nigga for real. And then once the pale face started realizing what was going on, he's taking these people's family property and he's turning them into bond servants. Where did they come from? Where did pale face come from? What was the socioeconomic condition of 80% of Europe from 711 AD to 1494? What was their socioeconomic condition? Everybody in Europe wasn't royalty. They were delegated to villages that the crown used at their disposal for using their babies as food and sex toys, using their women as concubines and their harems without their permission. They just go in and take what they want, right? And this is why they make all of those
years ago where I decided I was no longer going to weigh and measure. And that sounds kind of bitter and harsh, but I really did get to that point where I didn't want to go eeny, meeny, miny, mo, which one of you is going to try to fuck me here? You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to try to weed through to find out that, oh, you are a racist in the long end. You see what I'm saying? So I just kind of pulled back from that society where I was actually very intermingled with it. And the reason why I'm saying this is if it gets to a point when I understand at some point we don't have these bodies or whatever, but if the as above, so below is mirroring, why would I extend the higher I get up in terms of planes and dimensions? Does that make sense?
I don't quite understand what you just said. Say it again.
Okay. When you, because it's surrounding morality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, if you'd asked me 6, 7 years ago, any child out here, they should be taken care of. I still believe that. But there's something in the back of my mind now that says, if I were to, like, if you had like 10 children and they all needed a place, they were orphans, I would take all 10 in, right? Like, we're all trying to take care of a village. But part of me would wonder, are some of these people going to harm people that look like me later? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for me to see long term
That's called
morality.
projecting victimization from a caregiver.
I'm sorry?
It's projected victimization of a caregiver. But not only you're taking in orphans, some parents feel that way about their own children,
True.
right? But that's rooted in I don't trust what I'm teaching this child, and I don't trust what this child is learning in order for them to be good people. Therefore, the effect that it's going to have on them, I don't want to be here to suffer the consequences when the village turned on the child and the child burned the village down. You seeing it in advance, so it's making you have an aversion to your participation
Mm-hmm.
because you don't trust what the society has been instilling in the children. Nor do we. The difference is what instead of me trying to change what the society is teaching the children, I start telling them how to look for the truth. And then once I realized the youth had it, I don't care. I don't care. I'm going about my business now. Because the youth, when they give them proper instructions, exhibit wiser behavior than the ones miseducated. And they the ones that's going to educate the miseducated correctly. So when I see these youngsters writing songs about their history and they're repeating words that I said about where to look for stuff, and then they're going and pulling and making video shorts showing what I'm talking about with visuals now, they taking it to the next level. They able to change the fabric of the developmental pace of the next generation. What we got to do is learn to teach the children so that when we turn them loose as adults, they can operate autonomously. They don't need nobody micromanaging their life because we've instilled in them the skills and the character. The character enforces his own morality. Good character is a lot of times you don't have to be worried about what's morally correct or incorrect because you operating from a place of general goodness. That's why I say the noble character betrays the royal blood. And when you realize that what's in you can alter the world and you have that power by altering yourself, that changes the game for everybody involved. You are viewing the paradigm of the old system as you saw it. Your translation is clear based on what you've seen with your eyes. So now, going into a new system, the only thing now is to change the mental paradigm and how you view it, knowing that if you have to be raising 7 children from different backgrounds, it won't even matter because to teach them to be a good person and to treat people the way you want to be treated and show them examples of it throughout life and be the change you want to see, they're going to automatically pick it up and take it to the next level. And you won't have to worry about what kind of adults they're going to turn out to be because you put goodness in their heart. And I tell the little children that the goodness in their heart is a piece of gold. And the more they do stuff that make their heart glow, make the gold in your heart grow. Be rich when you become an adult. And the stuff that make you feel bad on the inside, that make your gold tarnish. Don't let your gold be in blackened where you can't see the light. It's supposed to always shine. But these people teach you to stop it from shining, and it kills your view of a better future by seeing that wicked past. That's why it's a nightmare. History is a nightmare, right? And the future is the dream. Step out of the nightmare into the dream. Don't live in the past. Use the past to build the future. All the shit that you don't like, don't take that shit into the future. All the good shit, take that with you. Feel good on top of goods, you're going to end up with a bunch of good shit. Use what's useful and discard what's waste. Put everything in its proper receptacle. That includes how you deal with people. Some people not going to be your people. It's okay to be cordial, be kind, and to kindly step the fuck away from them. And then some people going to be your people. And you're going to be cordial and be kind and all clucked up with them. Birds of a feather flock together. These my people. They vibe like I vibe. Yeah.
So your approach to that is more of a teaching.
Yeah. Babies
What
don't know how to
about
hate until they taught how.
Hmm?
Babies don't know how to hate until they taught how to hate. I done seen with my own 2 eyes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So if we don't teach them to hate and just teach them to be good people instead, what we gonna raise? Explain to them why we don't tolerate hate. It won't be in them. You gotta instill hate in the child and for the hate to grow and for them to grow up to be some fucked up people like they've been doing. That's the fertilizer. Keep feeding them more hate. Give them every situation, condition, and circumstances in which to hate further.
I won't say I've moved completely, but you shifted me a little bit today, so that's
A
good.
little shift is better than no shift at all, sweetie.
True. I mean, I wasn't trying to be bitter or anything, and I've always walked through life where I don't care if someone's racist towards me. It doesn't bother me. They're not gonna stop me from doing anything. But the problem is when I start seeing things at a bigger bird's eye view, there's just too much of it. It's affecting too many people. Does that make sense?
So
So
that means
my
the racist viewpoint was a military strategy rolled out on the people. It's up to the people to break that paradigm. Racism is an illusion. All it is an energy control put into society by the controller. That's all it is.
Yeah, but there's people that are affected from the top down,
Yeah, The,
or from a.
the wickedness coming from the top until we switch. The infection that's affecting us is coming from the top. It ain't coming from the bottom. Poor people too
No, I
busy
mean like.
being look. Poor people too busy being poor to make somebody else miserable.
So it's just a tentacle of the overall attack, I guess, is what you're saying. Just one of the many things that they use.
Right. Look, when you got to use education as a weapon too, and the stuff you train people, teach people is the education you give them. If it's used as a weapon, you got to know how to use it, how to wield it as a weapon. In the education that all of us so-called people in America been given, the organic originals, the $5 imposters, the cat's paw that came over the cover for the dirty players, everybody over here, we are being taught the same hatred, the same bullshit. They telling us how we supposed to feel about other people that we don't even know. I can't hate all pale face people because I don't know all pale face people. But I can
Could that
tell you,
also be energy leaking?
yes, exactly what it is. It's like riding on a flat. You hating people that don't even know you. That's the heights of ignorance. That's common sense to tell you that's the heights of ignorance. You can't be no more ignorant than that. You hate somebody that you ain't never met based on how they look. That's like hating a book before you ever read. I hate that book. That's the worst book in the world. I wonder why somebody writes some BS like ain't never read it. I read the Bible. I could tell you the Bible is an excellent rollout of the entire. You can use it for every aspect of conquest. The military
You
strategy
can never
in there.
tell.
Yeah, the military strategy in there. The rearing of the generals to control the future. It's all in there.
The
I ain't mad
Jesus
at them.
story, he is a military leader. I don't see how people don't see that.
The Jesus story is told to us wrong. It's incorrect in English. It's told to us all wrong. The preachers
Yeah, but if you
deliberately
look at
misleading
it,
the people.
if you look at it and you just read it, that was the weirdest thing that I never understood when I would. Well, I've actually done this with other things too, where I'm like, you did read the sentence, right? Like, I know that he's telling you it means this, but if you read the sentence, or if you can put a picture together, you could see that the Jesus person in there was a militant leader. Sorry, I got that one in high school. Sorry.
Well, it's two different people talking as the character they call in Jesus in the modern Bible. That's why I say it's
That's
written
true.
wrong. You got
Yeah, I
the
have
you
seen a
got
lot of people when I told them you could tell that there was multiple GODs throughout the whole book
well that
itself.
ain't
I mean, it was like,
yeah, I tell you that in Psalms 82:6, even the character in the red says it's not written ye are gods, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that they have two people talking with two different idea sets.
oh
One is
yeah.
one is always talking this love and harmony and flower child generation bullshit, and the other one talking about we about to fuck this
Pick up your
motherfuckers
arm.
up. I don't give. Go sell off your garments, buy swords and knives. We taking these motherfuckers to war tonight, right?
Van Gogh somebody.
Yeah. So they got two different characters talking as one person, and this is fucking up the minds of the people because they don't know the original story, so they'll never figure out why is it two different people. They don't even know enough to know that it's two different mindsets just talking in the red. They're not even
Yeah,
that educated.
even even in the Old Testament, you can tell that the Yahweh character changed over time too.
Well, yeah, because a lot of time when they translating as God, it ain't Yahweh, it's Adonai or it's El. Them the whole different personas. but they all translated as God. And if they ain't Lord, it's ball translates as Lord. It's a couple more of them that translate as Lord. All of the time they saying Lord, they not talking about the same person.
Yeah,
All the
it's a
time they
type.
saying God in there, and when they translate and you think they're talking about Yahweh, they talking about a whole bunch of different gods. The gods of the Moabites was Chemosh, the mighty one.
Oh, how
He,
do you
men-
spell that?
he mentioned in the Bible.
How do you spell that?
CHEMOSH.
You know, I always thought, I'm sorry, we're just chatting. I always thought that it was unusual. You know, like when you go through, when you read the Bible, if you're reading it from a studious standpoint where you're trying to figure it out. I always thought it was strange that the um, what is it, how do you,
Melchizedek.
Melchizedek? Yeah, they only show up twice in the whole Old Testament, but they were very important military times. I was like, who are these people? How come we don't have some more background on this?
That's
So that
because there's
was
other
always me.
books. There's other books that didn't make the canon that it tells you who
What
Melchizedek, the ancient one,
was
was.
it?
They call him in Islam Al Qadar,
Say that
right?
again. I'm
I
sorry.
said that's because there's other books that didn't make the canon.
Yeah, no, but which ones have that order in it?
So the Melchizedek order is the Malachi Zodak, or my angel the just. It's the school of the just angels in English in translation, but it's called the priesthood of Melchizedek. The
That
writings of Melchizedek wouldn't make the Bible because they couldn't be used to deceive people. They could only be used to awaken people.
is
So
that those tablets that you had that video on?
um, some of those texts are in those tablets, the holy tablets.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
So
definitely
yeah,
need that
so
one then.
Melchizedek came to Abraham in war. And when Abraham slew the Philistines, he gave him a tenth of his spoils. And that created the standard of what they call in the church tithing.
Which is totally different.
Yeah, what this is where they so-called get it from.
Wasn't that also the angel that showed up for Joshua?
Yeah, because Melchizedek is the just angel,
Okay, yeah.
right?
Where he
So,
had to remove his
right
feet or his
now, what most people don't know is Melchizedek is the angel Michael. And the
Okay.
angels that fall under his command are under the order of Melchizedek. So in the New Testament, and it say, like your Lord Jesus, who was made a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. That means that the character that they call in Jesus was taught by the Melchizedek priest school to be under the command of the archangel Michael in, in order to battle the war on earth that started in heaven. So then they're telling you that character was under that priesthood and assigned the mission to come in under the orders of Melchizedek in order to correct some wrongs that people ain't been seeing.
Would it surprise you if I told you that my second near-death experience, I saw somebody that told me they were Michael?
No, it wouldn't shock me at all. It wouldn't shock me at all because, but you gotta remember your psychic perception is steered by your interpretation of what they gave you in the three-dimensional world.
Yeah, because I don't think they would call themselves that now. At that time, I was more I didn't call myself a Christian, but I was studying Christianity.
But the angels got nothing to do with the church.
Well, I would have framed it in my mind, though, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
My psyche would have put it in that framework.
Yeah. 'Cause a lot of us think that only Christians and Muslims and Jews talk about angels. Angel mean messenger. The implication is that God sent a messenger. But right there in their book, it say, be careful how you treat a stranger, for many is entertain angels unaware. You entertain people coming to help you in your path, but you've been pouring dirt on them, and you didn't even know they was your angel, your messenger. But most of us only view it through the light of the lens that the church painted for us. So we be confused about the information that's coming in because what the church has influenced us to perceive has been altering our perception on purpose.
They do a good job on that because they act like some of them are just like they look like the cherubs that they make those little porcelain things out of,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not how they're described. Actually, in the wording, they're not described that way. And then my favorite go-to on that was like, did you miss the Gabriel episode where he shut that man's mouth up? He literally was just like, you can't talk anymore. That's an action. That's I mean, to me, I was like, how can you not comprehend that first of all that they would have some type of power where he could do that, and then he took an action that most people would take offense to. Does that make sense? Like, this isn't some guy that just brought you some love notes. You know, it's
Yeah.
weird.
But most of the time, the ones that have what they call angelic missions, they let you do whatever. They don't give a fuck what you do. They nonchalant with it.
Mhm.
Yeah, they not finna try to tell you, don't go fuck that nigga up. Yep, go ahead, fuck him up. Don't go sleep with that trashy hoe. Go on sleep with her. I ain't got nothing to do with that. Because they only concerned about giving you the message. They ain't concerned about how you live your life. There's
Right.
too many people concerned about other people's opinions that they can't live their own life. And they end up relegated to the gossip circle to spread information. Yeah. All right, sweetie, I'm about to wrap it up now. I think I've been on here longer than
Okay.
you.
Sorry, I was taking up a lot of your time today. I appreciate it. We
That's
went a
okay.
few topics there, so.
Well, I think that you came by a mission. You needed to learn a couple of things. I hope you reviewed this a couple of times because you had some.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, you had.
I want to look up that title you mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
too.
Okay. And you can inbox me if you have any questions. Stories
Okay.
about
All right.
Europe and what was going on in
Thank you.
medieval Europe and how when the king's people came, you terrorized the villagers. And now they looking at this same person that sent them in Europe to terrorize the villagers over here, trying to send them in to terrorize of somebody else's village. And they like, nah, we ain't, this is not sitting right with us. Some of them went along with it, but a lot of them didn't. And then when the ones that was brought over here in indenture, as they call it, because that's what they called it, because they had paperwork on everybody that moved in Europe. Just like they got paperwork on everybody now in modern America that move. If you sovereign, ain't nobody supposed to know your every move. That's just basic human respect. Sovereign people respect sovereign boundaries.
Right.
But when you in bondage and servitude and you don't know it, everything you do is suspect because the captor always in fear of you waking up and taking over and leaving him where you at, the bottom.
What about yeah, one other thing that he found in the records. There was something about they wrote they wrote a law, the pale faces wrote a law as they were forming their so-called government, that within a year that the indigenous people, which were our people, had to share their land with them, a portion of their land, or if they hadn't done this within a year, that they were going to completely take over the land, which is where it was said in this paperwork where the term sharecropping came. So they wrote they wrote their laws and then and their government, but it shouldn't have mattered to us, but except it had something to do with our land. So they
That's
wanted
what
the
Martin
land.
was talking about when they moved the European peasantry in and undergird them with a foundational structure. They didn't know how to farm the land. Only people that knew. And to this day, the only ones, if you wasn't taught by the people over here, you grow crappy crops. So that's why they paying most of the farmers not to grow crops. It's more farmers paid not to grow crops than sell their crops on the open market.
I do know that. Yeah, which is crazy. And
That's because they want to be able to use the food and as a military weapon.
So
And that's why the resistance always is predicated on two things: beans and bullets. Feed the people, protect the people. Beans and bullets. Anywhere you go in the world, if you're part of the resistance, all you got to do is listen for that phrase, beans and bullets. What is it about, beans and bullets? Because that's what it's all about. Feed the people, protect the people. But people don't know how to protect themselves when they don't know who the enemy is.
Right.
And the enemy use every stratagem of war to oppress the people. Oppressed people can be deceived into thinking they're just above oppression because they have some semblance of mobility. Just because you can move around on the land don't mean that you ain't under their thumb. You got to dismantle the corporation, restore the republic in order to move back to the common law, which is the tribal law. Because the corporation stole it from the republic. We didn't do business with the corporation. They did business by themselves.
Right.
They assumed the jurisdiction by order of the crown. They established the bar association by order of the crown. They even came over here under the what they call the doctrine of discovery with discovery rights by order of the Pope.
The Pope. It's like any place you discover, like that's why they claim Christopher Columbus, who is questionable whether or not he even existed, discovered America. But yeah, there are a lot of pieces that I've been running
The biggest
into.
hole in that story, Dr. G. Where did they say Christopher Columbus was going when he bumped into America? Did they say he was going to India?
India. When he going to India or someplace?
You know what the problem with that story is? That story had to be written in the 1900s. Because India was Hindustan up until the 1940s or 50s.
Okay.
It wasn't called India.
Well, if truth be told, we weren't even called Indians. So, that I think where a lot of folks might, differ with that, we Indians, is because that appears to be a label also. Because just like Africa, over in Africa, most of the folks, someone from Africa is not going to say I'm African. He may say I'm Ghanaian, I'm Nigerian, I'm whatever country he hails from. But just like us, like I said, we don't know, I guess, specifically what we called ourselves, but we were tribal and clan-like in our I guess how we live. And maybe, just maybe, the $5 Indians, so-called those Indians, would actually try to model themselves after how we lived in that, or maybe they were taught how to do that, but they weren't us. And somebody mentioned about the treaties. The treaties, it seems like that any treaties that were really signed were not signed by us, between us and them, but the $5 Indians, the fake ones, and them. So
listen,
those aren't even valid.
Ain't no chief nothing name on none of them papers.
Right.
They got all of the names that ain't from over here on them papers. Because they was making agreements with other Europeans about the dissemination of our territory under the doctrine of discovery.
Right.
They created something called squatters' rights, which is an extension of something called a salvage right. The squatter right is what they use to put the European peasantry on the land. So they gonna tell us the story narrative in the manner that make us think that everything, all this power is coming from pale-faced Europeans that was powerless in the whole time before they came over here. How they gonna come over here and assume power? It's not possible. Somebody lying.
They had help.
You have to. Or they following somebody else's order that's making them out to be the fall guy.
Well, yeah, they had help because I was told that in I was studying something that said at one point, because I've seen pictures where the paleface and the Aboriginals were working side by side in the fields, like whether or not who was what is what, but you see them both working. And then at some point, just like they had that thing about when were white people created. At that point, they were not white people. They were Europeans from wherever they came from, and now they were here as indentures and
White
whatever.
people don't got nothing to do with skin color.
No, I know, but the white
it's a legal, it's a legal terminology for a reason.
Right, the legal terminology, they decided to create that, and then to create a schism, because at one point we were working side by side in the field, almost, if you will, as equals. And then when they said, look, they look like us, let's elevate them, call them
especially
something.
The Irish.
Yeah,
the Irish been over here longer than Columbus.
Well, yeah, I mean, we had something to do with Ireland ourselves, because you look at, what was it, the last, what was it, oh no, I'm talking about Ireland, Scotland, running the snakes, so-called snakes out of St. Patrick, running all the snakes, which were no really snakes there, but that was
the priesthood.
Right. So that was code.
They came over here.
Right. The last
Scotland. Okay, so the word Irish is from the word Orisha. Scotta was an Egyptian princess who was given the domain of the territory of Scotland and Ireland. She had a twin sister that was with her named Scotia. Scotia was caramel color with freckles and dark red hair. Scotta, excuse me. Scotta was buttermilk complexion with bright red hair. They call them gingers.
Were they mulatto, or were they what were they?
They was Irish.
Oh.
They their own bloodline. Scotta and Scotia was the Gemini sisters, the last born of Isis. They're the last ones to be established as the daughters of Isis, with the Gemini sisters. This is why Gemini is prominent in the recovery. When Scotta came over here, they changed her name to Brigitte. So we see her in the Orisha pantheon as Maman Brigitte. But you see her in the Catholic mythology as Saint Bridget. And then they confuse you as to who she is with the Catholic Church, because their design is to confuse you in order to rob, steal, and kill. And that's the continuation of ancient Babylon. The biggest trick of Rome was to tell us that Rome fell. It just turned into the church and changed its direction of war. Still was war.
Right. Wow. Yeah, it's a lot. There's so much that is being uncovered, though, in these days, and I don't want to say last days or whatever times they're, because
they're the last days of the enemy rule.
Well, okay, well then last days. There's a lot that's but there are just so many folks that are still in that space of trusting government or believing the lies that they have been, we've been fed, all our lives, so to speak, through school and through, church and all of these other organizations that have been designed to put us in some kind of a program, a trick bag or whatever. So what do you see happening in these next, 3 years and 10 months of the Trump, reign regime? Because we know he was selected. So
it's going to come a point where these audits are going to be finished. They moved the date for the World Fair from the day after Memorial Day to, I think, sometime in 2026, which means that they behind on the work. But the 1 year celebration is still scheduled to happen. They just changed the date that they gonna start it on. That's recent.
The 1 year celebration
They call it the 250-year independence celebration. But what is really independence after 250 years of oppression celebration?
Do you think his the cancellation or whatever of Black History Month was an affront, or
he should have canceled that bullshit?
Well, I didn't have a problem with him. I mean, with it myself personally,
I don't need no. That's all a strategic political move, because you got to look at some of the moves that he making. He don't even like. You could tell by his facial expression. He hard to read. That's why he Agent Orange. But you could tell when he don't like something because of how he try to brush it off on the comment. He don't really want to discuss the stuff that he don't agree with. That he doing. He doing it. He don't agree with it, but he's still doing it. I don't care. Get the job done, sucker. Tear it down. Drag them out. Bring all these dirty players out in the open. Let us see all of them.
You're right.
Everybody in the Senate and Congress, they getting audited too. We want to know how a person with a $265,000 a year salary that started off in the ghetto is worth $2 billion. You don't make enough money to be worth $2 billion. How you worth $2 billion? Ain't no significant investments. Where you get all this money? No, all of the politicians have a standard of living that far exceeds their income bracket. I mean, they getting some money under the table somewhere.
They have.
It's gonna come out. It's gonna come out.
Yeah.
I heard a senator talking to another senator one day, and he was telling them, he said, if you ain't corrupt when you get to Washington, just stick around a couple years. You can't get shit done.
I have a friend that's a friend that's there, and became from, let's see, what are they now? Senator. And I was shocked because I thought sure after she got there the first year as Congress that she was such a wonderful person that it was going to be so dirty in that swamp that she wouldn't run again. She ran again for a second term and won, and then she just became the senator replacing Carper. And I was like, ugh, they got her.
You can't swim in the swamp and don't get swamp water on you.
I know that.
But she could be being used by the good side too.
I hope.
Because remember, they put that bill back in November up for the continuity of government in case of over 100 senators and congressmen. And then they turned around and the Brunson case got over 300 and some senators and congressmen that don't have oath for office.
What's the Brunson case?
Brunson case is the challenge to those people after January 6th that was senators and stuff. They started pulling people's oath for office and seeing who had them on record and who didn't. And the ones who don't have an oath for office on record, the Brunson case saying that that's treasonous and they should be arrested and that they should be stepped down from their positions. But they can't have an oath for office because they central casting. They're not actually there to perform the part, and they're not actually the person they telling you they are. They're just using skin mask, deep fake, and Hollywood effect in this political satire. It's a cover story. The Branson case is the plug. Whenever they want to pull the plug on the scam and let everybody in on it, they rule on the Branson case. Right? They just announced, they dropped on one of the channels, somebody sent me a tribunal timeline. You know, who was arrested and when they was arrested. And all that stuff old, but they got to put it off as new to justify the Biden-Harris farce of a 4-year rule. That was just there to buy time for the level of work that needed to be done. It wasn't going to be enough time in 2 Trump terms. So you put a Frost term in the middle and you let him run his second term, and then he come in, and now he come in like that girl with her Hannah Montana with a wrecking ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's swinging that wrecking ball now. Now all of the dirt done. The sleeves was rolled up on January the 6th when the Republic flag was placed behind the Admiralty flag seizing the battleship. But we don't know what we're looking at. We just think we're watching some kind of theater perform. They all accusing Donald Trump of trying to start violence on January 6th, but you got them on video discussing how to instigate the crowd to violence. Pelosi and them. How to agitate them. But they accusing Trump.
Right.
We got the video of the police inviting people in, but they said they stormed the building. And we supposed to believe that though. That's the audacity right there. That's some audacious stuff. They showing you the video of the police leading the people in. Nobody that's belligerent or violent. They all laughing and having a good time and interacting with the police. All of a sudden, they stormed the building. And people fell for it. And people end up getting locked up on some BS because the public spectacle had to be maintained because the people fell for it. Now we finna inoculate them. Since they didn't catch the cold, we gonna give them the cold. If they dumb enough to take this, I got some swampland. We gonna sell the whole world in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
It's just a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. But we have to. I think we have to do a better job. When I say we, I'm talking about us. And like you said, I agree that nobody said that everybody has to get along or like. I don't know what you said, like or get along, whatever you said.
We don't have to get. We don't know if 2 people don't get along. Just don't go where the other one at.
True. Right.
Don't go looking for the people you don't get along with because you're going to get your ass whooped.
That's true. But I'm saying, but we need to work on if each one of us worked on ourselves, and did the inner work that everyone eventually should do, I feel we come probably to more of a conclusion of unity just because of the self work of the going in and doing, as they said,
that's a key and critical aspect, because there might be some people over here that's mostly African that bleed a native because they never done self work. We don't mind African people being over here. We just don't want them to think that we're not taking back what's ours. And then if they can go over there and help take Africa back because it's going down.
Well, yeah, they're inviting, folks to come to, I believe, Ghana and so forth, and be able to get
Gotta
citizenship.
change their mind.
You said change their mind about where they come from.
I'm serious.
I know, but I'm just saying the inner work when you do, your self work, that makes a major difference. You don't have time to fool with other people's business and to try to impose your will on others, because you got to work out some the ish that's in you, the programming that's in you,
The art and
trauma,
science is staying in your own lane.
your own lane, the trauma and so forth that we have suffered with through the lives. People don't see this. A lot of folks don't see that, know that they've been traumatized. Because when I have a dear friend, I'm not going to name her name. She knows who I'm talking about. And she hears that. And she says, I had to get, 65 years old before I realized, that I've been lied to all my life. She's like, 65 wasted years of being lied, and every time I talk to her, she's maybe 66, however many years, she tells me all the time, and I'm like, sis is traumatized. Talented is, AF, but traumatized to the fact that all of as the truth is being revealed, what she's been denied. And how many others, even with me, when I had my awakening, my spontaneous awakening in 2010, at the end of 2010, it was traumatizing to an extent, but I didn't stay there. Some folks will wallow in their trauma. I started, surrounding myself with folks that would help me, to really understand what had happened, and to know that maybe I could be a part of making that change and helping other folks come out of the trauma. So that was my difference. I'm not saying that I'm clear of everything, but I'm saying I'm not stuck where I was when I first woke up. I'm not still laying in the bed of my, and being of despair of how they lied to me. So they lied. Now, what am I going to do to change it? How can I help other people?
You got to go through the stages of grief and the detox of realizing that your whole life that you've been fed a bunch of BS.
Right.
The most traumatic thing to me, I'm recovered from it now, but nothing was more traumatic to me than finding out that the people behind this stuff, they blacker than me. That hurt my feelings so bad. I had to do the math at least 400 times before I would even accept that I was right. My feelings was but it caused the trigger effect. As I recovered from that realization and verification process, it made me see beyond the blood in my eye. Now I'm staring at the moment of truth like the bull at the last stroke of the bullfight. I could see the matador beyond the cape. I could see the fraud behind the curtain. I could see Geppetto pulling Pinocchio's strings, telling him to tell these lies. Mm-hmm. My feelings was hurt, but as I recovered from those hurt feelings, I started to have a different position and perspective of looking at the devil in his face. And everything that they did to us to separate us, I got to work to undo that. I don't know if I'll be successful, because there's still going to be some idiots going to hate somebody because of the way they look. Mm-hmm. Right? Never knowing that the enemy don't care how you look, he coming at both of y'all ass. It's the same enemy. The enemy that sent them to do the dirt they didn't want to do, that was because they was trying to stop their babies from getting ate. Right? Then some of them was willing participants. Some of them to this day hold that viewpoint. That's okay, because the guillotine will fix them. I just want to be the one pull the lever. I want a whole bunch of guillotines connected to one lever so it'll make a song when it start going down the line. I call it my guillotine concerto.
Off with their heads.
Off with their mucking heads.
Well, it's just, like I said, my heart has always been, for trying to help folks, come through something, as a former pastor and all that. It's always about helping folks come through. But when you have to try to go back and get people out of something that you had a part of putting them in, you know what I mean? You told them that this was.
That gives you a higher sense of duty to want to do it, but it makes you more frustrated doing it because you remember you used to teach it.
Yeah, that's the part.
And it comes with a sense of shame as you trying to tell somebody that I was tricked too.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't have told you that bullshit. The mind control, the mental trap, the illusion that they paint, it's a compelling story. The greatest story ever told that ain't true. They tell you it's the greatest story ever told. They just don't tell you that Josephus Flavius wrote it. And that it was never a religious book, but it was a whole theater played out before they had TVs and radios in the play format. That's why you got the verses in the Bible. Because all of the verses is somebody remembering their lines. The more verses you can remember, you can play any part if you can remember the whole thing. They use the same format in order to create Hafiz in Islam. Because the ones who gonna rise up to be the leaders of their clan, to try to expand reach and join the other clans and to get the imposters off the land, they have to control them, so they use the religious paradigm. Christianity didn't work on all them people in the Middle East. They was too volatile. They needed a volatile savior. So they saturate him with all these Catholics in order to influence what they need him to teach. So now he got to go to his Bible scholars in order to verify his revelations, in order to make sure that he translating correctly what the Spirit is telling him, and they telling them the wrong answer on purpose.